Do not adjust your digital device. What you are about to see and hear may shock and appall you. Join our hosts as they encounter countless thrills, spills, chills, and hilarity as they explore the very weirdest in pop culture. The following media is so strange, so beyond the scope of what is normal, it will make you ask the question, why does this exist? Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Why Does This Exist? I'm Chris,
And I'm Rob.
and I don't know, we're a bunch of episodes in. We're over 120 episodes in. We're almost at 130. If you know what we do, good for you. If you don't know what we do, well, you're gonna find out, Sally, or Sean, or I don't know, or
Struggle to find an S name. I mean, Sally could be a unisex name technically.
really? I never met a
Well,
man named Sally, but
well,
I
yeah,
guess, but it's
I've heard people
2024.
Sal that were like it's like Sally as a nickname.
Oh, that's true. I just never met anyone. I had never met a Sal who they called Sally. I've seen
It's I
people.
don't know. It's more like a mobster thing, maybe.
I guess so. Well, there probably is
Like
something
like
else attached to it, like Sally Joe or Sally Dragon or something like that.
Mustang Sally and Tile from The Sopranos.
Oh yeah, I forgot that was a guy. Uh, anyway, now that you've just proved me to be an asshole, thanks. This is Why Does This Exist? We're a show about weird stuff in pop culture. All of the things are in the descriptions and you could give us money and all that's fine
Give
thing.
us money.
Just pretty much, this is a show. Give us money. That's it. We're gonna talk about the Pentaverate now, but I almost forgot my spiel. You are
Yeah.
now about to witness the strength of street knowledge from a ragtag group of rogues. So let's get on with the goddamn show. Now we can talk about the Pentaverate.
All right.
Which must never be exposed, by the way. You can't
Of
see
course.
me, but I did the thing. But here we are exposing it. The Pentaverate, if you weren't paying attention, or there were too many things to watch in 2022 for, well, the things that were going on in the world at the time.
Nothing good.
Nothing good. I mean, how much good is really happening now?
There's
Anyway,
nothing ever good anywhere.
there's nothing ever good. Good things happening were probably in another castle, or universe, or, well, it's just not here. But the Pentaverate was a show by Mike, that where, like, Mike Myers kind of came out of the woodwork, did the Pentaverate. Pentaverate is a secret society that is run by 5 men who have controlled the world since 1347. Allegedly because, well, I forget what the oppression was, but it was something quite
It was
silly.
so
It was the Black Plague, right?
Yeah,
It
the
was under
story
Black
goes that
Plague?
during the outbreak of the Black Death, there were 5 I don't know if they're described how they're described, but it's like these 5 guys that realized that it was coming from fleas, that the plague was being spread by fleas, and they were like murdered because everyone, like, the church controlled everything and said no, this is the punishment from God. So there was a secret society created, basically, that is supposed to like solve the world's problems and rule from like behind the scenes.
Yes,
And it's supposed to be,
they're supposed to be the Illuminati if they're nice.
yes, yeah, it's like the nice Illuminati, pretty much.
Yeah, where they're like trying to fix the world's problems versus like trying to destroy the world and control it.
Yeah,
But yeah, so Mike Myers comes out of the woodwork, does it, and he's playing just about every character, like doing his Austin Powersy stuff and stuff
yeah,
that Mike Myers is. Well, it's just what Mike Myers does.
yeah.
Um, and he makes this little mini series, and like, just it got critically panned a lot. I mean, we'll talk about that a little bit more. I thought it was fine. I thought it was enjoyable, and I also thought
I
that
thought
it
it was
was
pretty
like
funny too.
I thought it was also what the world needed at the time. I had seen it when it first came out, and I enjoyed it very much, and I liked it more the second time because it was just fun. Like,
Yeah.
It was a good turn your brain off show, and it was kind of just what you needed to just
Yeah.
escape things.
It's very
Um,
much the same kind of comedy as Austin Powers. Like
yeah,
it's a little crude, but there is also some like smart elements to it. Um so it's like kind of like a mix of like kind of like more modern like crude comedy, but also with like that classic kind of like drier humor slash like, more quips and stuff like that. But it's got like the similar like jokes and sequences that an Austin Power movie would have. So you could really say the Pentaverate is almost a spiritual successor to the Austin Powers movies.
yeah, I would say so. And also like the fun thing is, like so one of the people that Mike Myers plays, he's like the one of the main, he's the main character of the show. Really, is Ken Scarborough, who is who was based off of who was based off of a real life Canadian journalist that was like his hometown hero. Let me just pull up his yeah, let me just pull up who his inspiration was from. He is based off of Glenn Cochran, who was just
Mhm.
this like local Canadian news guy. He was on he was on TV for he was on the Canadian news for like just 30 years or something like that. And he just was like just well loved as like a community reporter guy, man on the street type of thing. Just a very wholesome journalist. And like he was somebody that Mike Myers had like constantly grown up with, and he had just like he has very interesting fantasies as a child. Like most people would fantasize about like becoming like a world leader of some kind, or of like being an astronaut, or like being like a big like a superhero in some way, where he was just like, you know, it'd be really nice if Glenn Cochran just like interviewed me to be on the news. It would be really cool.
Yeah.
And like at the very tail end of the show, he like it shows like an old thing of him getting his wish when he like gets interviewed in like on the Canadian like news channel, with like Ken Scarborough interviews him, and like when he like got successful off of like SNL and things like that, and like
Hmm.
he's just like hugging him, and he's like, Glenn Cochran, yay, like just a very wholesome moment.
Yeah.
I don't think Glenn Cochran lived long enough to see this. I believe he died in like 2002 or something like that. But let me just make sure that Glenn Cochran is dead and not living and has seen this, and now he hates me. Um,
Well, while you look for that, Mike Myers also plays pretty much every member of the Pentaverate except for Dr. Hobart Clark, who's played by Keegan Michael Key. Um, at-
yep,
and
2012 he died.
okay, there you go. Nice. Um, well, not nice that he died.
It's
Nice that
not
he found
no,
it.
it's not nice that he died. A very nice man dying is not nice at all.
No, it's not nice that he
To
died.
be
Nice that you
clear.
found the deer.
Yes,
It's sad that he
yes.
died.
It is very sad that he died. We miss Glenn Cochran dearly, although we quite literally hardly knew ye.
Maybe he died to prevent the 2012 end of the world.
I don't know, but
Much like
although
how Macho Man Randy Savage died the day of that there was supposed to be a rapture, and all of a sudden nothing happened. So
yeah,
my
that's
headcanon is that Macho Man Randy Savage died to prevent the end of the world.
maybe Macho Man didn't really die, and they recruited him into the Pentaverate.
That's true. Maybe he did get recruited into the Pentaverate.
Okay, so when the show starts off, we see like them recruiting a new member to the Pentaverate, played by Keegan Key, and he like they recruit him into the group because they need like a fantasy scientist who's like super smart and like can solve like cold fusion and like solve a lot of the world's problems.
Yeah,
And
he's basically they're trying to solve climate change now.
yeah,
This is like the modern problem that they're trying to solve.
yeah, and they basically he like gives him the formula to fix it basically, but they like he's abducted in the middle of the night by this like helicopter, and then by like yeah, it's like a helicopter. They abduct him. He doesn't know what's going on. They take him into this place, which happens to be at Hudson Yards in New York. Well, go figure.
Huh.
Which Hudson Yards is very beautiful, but it's also like this elite rich people property thing. They have nice restaurants, but the people who live there are probably mostly dicks. Anyway, um, they they go to they go to the they go to the Pentaverate headquarters, and where like the helicopter pilots don't know what they're doing, don't know where they're going. They have to put like blindfolds on at some point, and then like the helicopters are like guided to like the landing spot. But they abduct the guy. They bring him into the Pentaveret, and they basically give him no choice. They do their rituals, and like they give him really no choice because he either has to like accept the nomination to be in the Pentaveret, or that he has to like eat a cyanide pill, and which is there's no real choice there.
Right.
Um, like, and he
There's a
can't
little
go.
I like there's a
Sorry.
little reference to basically he's like given like a key which allows him to become part of the Pentaverate or the pill. So there's like, oh, you could take either the key or the peel, and it's like there's kind of like a little like nod to Key and Peele, which is pretty hilarious because it's Keegan Michael Key.
Yeah. Um, and like basically they give him no real like option. Um, and like this, and we'll get into like more of like the lore in a minute, but he's just like, why can't I just, he's like, if I say no, why can't I just go back to like, where I came from? I don't even know where I am. Like, I don't like, it doesn't make sense. Like, why can't I just go back to my normal life? And they were like, well, you can't. We already like the world thinks you're dead. And he's like, well, what do you mean? And they have like this like weird like TikTok-ish meme challenge that like where he tries to suck his own wiener and he dies doing that. Um
What if that's a
which
reference to Clerks?
I that could be. Which we did a few weeks ago.
Yes.
If you want to check out another episode, or if you've already turned it off by now, well, good riddance. So, for the two people who are left, this is the Pentaverate. So they get like he's already dead, and the world already thinks he's dead, and they're just like, sorry, you really don't have a choice. You're either gonna be like dead for real, or like you have to be in the Pentaverate. And like the other part of the initiation ritual, the concludicado, they're not very well named rituals. they they pretty much just added like a Latin like um suffix to the end of the word. Um, and he like you have to put the cyanide pill in the key, and you carry the key at all times so that you can so that like for certain votes and things like that, only they have to like put their vote into like a specific like combination, like into a certain mechanism in order to do things. There's certain things where it just requires their keys, but the cyanide pill is still there with them at all times just in case the Pentaverate fails, or really if it falls into nefarious hands, because the
Mhm.
whole purpose is to keep recruiting the good guys.
Yeah.
And if they fail and they recruit an evil person into the Pentaverate who corrupts society and basically like does the opposite of what they're trying to do, then because they have all failed as members, they have to have the cyanide pill, and and the Pentaverate then like dissolves and like is destroyed.
Yeah.
So that's what they have to do. Um, but yeah, then we just have mild mannered Ken Scarborough, who's just trying to be a Canadian journalist and doing his thing,
Hmm.
and he loses his job as like the news anchor because they just replace him with like somebody else because his segments are probably just not really doing that well, and he's just getting older, so they're like, what do we even do with this guy? So they kind of like kick him out unceremoniously, and he like finds all of these like convention cons and things like that, Um, and he's trying to, and like someone tells him about this guy that they like meet him and the camera woman who's like his assistant. He gets this idea where like if I can just get this one super big investigative story, then like maybe they'll give me my job back.
Yeah.
So he decides to go and like do all these things. He bumbles into like this conspiracy convention, and like they meet this like Yahoo guy, also played by Mike Myers,
Yes.
who's
Anthony
like
Lansdowne.
yes, who's like big into conspiracy theories, and they like
Yeah.
kind of like, and he like tells him about the Pentaverate, and
Yes.
then like they pretty much agree to go cross country with him in hopes of like in hopes of uncovering this secret society and
Yeah.
like making it happen.
One of my favorite jokes from the first episode is that when they're in Canada, I guess like the movie or like the show's not in HD in Canada or something. So like
uh
there's kind of like a film grain on it, and like like you see like the black bars like on the side of the TV, and then as soon as they cross the border into America, all of a sudden the black bars disappear and everything clears up, and they like, kind of comment, oh, they're like, oh wow, America looks so much more clear than it's like. There's just like a lot of little jokes and references that are really like funny, and it's kind of subtle, and like it's got a really good punchline. um
yeah. Yeah, like the setups are really neat, and then when you get it, it's like, oh, there we go.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
you're like every time you're just like, okay, well, where would like you start thinking like where would Mike Myers go with this, and then they get to the punchline, and you're like, oh yeah, that's what he would do. Like it kind of
yeah,
like you get
yeah,
cheery about it. You're like,
yeah,
oh,
like
that's the delivery I was hoping for.
there's another scene in the second episode where they're in this bar, and like there's like uh Ken Scarborough is like playing pool with this American guy. And I guess it's Ken Scarborough's supposed to be like a pool ace basically, so like he's like kicking ass. And he's going up against these like two, like this one American dude, and like there's this woman there, like an American woman there. And I guess this it's supposed to be like this redneck bar somewhere like in like upstate New York or something, and like they're cursing up a storm and stuff because that's like implied, oh, Americans curse all the time or whatever.
Yeah,
So they do this whole thing where these two, like he's like kicking their ass completely, or he's kicking the dude's ass completely, and like woman is like sitting there eating chicken wings and like commentating on the whole thing, and
yeah,
like literally cursing every other word. So then it like cuts out to the like, oh, we realize this could be offensive to some audiences, so we're gonna redo it without the cursing. And they go back and cut out all the times a curse is said, but the way it's like lined up, it makes it like this whole other innuendo thing where it looks like my Ken Scarborough's like basically having sex with the friggin' American guy. And it's all these like innuendos and shit like that are put into it. And he gets like sprayed with like blue cheese or ranch dressing or something. And it's like,
yeah.
it's hilarious the way they cut it up.
Yeah,
And,
one of the other ones that I liked is like towards the end when they're at the Meadows, which is like the big like
it's
super
supposed to be like the
conspiracy
Bilderberg
thing.
group, kind of like,
Yeah.
or like,
And
Bohemian Grove or some shit like that.
yeah, and like they go and they go there and there's like an orgy room, and like he goes into the orgy room by mistake, and like the first and like when he like bumps into like the guard who is just like totally naked, they convince him to like strip down to nothing, and when he goes in there they like the everyone's naked, so like they cut to like the Netflix they cut to like somebody who's supposed to be the Netflix president,
Yeah.
and he's just like apologizing for like the gratuitous nudity and everything, and like he's just like saying how they installed these like new like to make things more PG. They installed these like AI these AI like sensor blocks basically to go over the private areas, and like and so like they like play the scene with the with like the auto detector like sensor blocks, and it keeps like glitching, so like it only works half of the time, and it's like starts like censoring things that aren't like
Yeah.
penises, so like hot dogs suddenly get censored and it makes it look worse,
Yeah.
but like the penis is not censored because it's only doing like one thing at a time. Like there's a lot of really funny like little running gags throughout it that are just like you
And
expect it, or
very
like they
much like
go
what you
or
would
like
see in Austin Powers.
yeah,
Like,
or like they go to like they go to like Belgium or something like that, and there's like an ogre fest or something like that, and
Yeah.
they run into they run into a Shrek one, and the Shrek one saves the day and
Yeah.
like knocks the bad guy out or something. No, he like beats up the Sasquatch or something.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like funny little things, but like there isn't too much on like the origins of the show really. All that's really like just kind of been like said in interviews is really just like Mike Myers, like many of us, just like grew up like thinking that like just like being fascinated with the idea of secret societies
Hmm.
and like conspiracy theories, whether or not like you're into them or you're just like aware of them and just like, it would be kind of like wacky if some of these things were true. Um,
Yeah.
like, and he just figured let's ride with it, but he threw this into he threw the Pentaverate into his first movie, So I Married an Axe Murderer, just as like a throwaway line in there. It's like one of the two characters. I think he only plays like two characters in that movie, but he plays like
Yeah.
the main character, and I think his father. So like there's like a scene where like they're like talking to his father, and his father is like just glued to the TV, and they like this goes all the way like they go full circle with this joke too, like in the show. But like a commercial for KFC comes on, and his dad like starts like flipping out at the TV, and he's like starts cursing out the Colonel basically, and he's like, "What do you have against the Colonel, Dad?" And he's in the Pentaverate. I know him. He's in the Pentaverate, and he's like. Dad, what? Like, what are you talking about? He's like, what's the Pentaverate? He's like, it's a secret society. The Colonel's in charge of the Pentaverate. They're up to no good. He's like, they're using mind control in the chicken. And he's like, Dad, what kind of like, how could you say that about the Colonel? And he's like, how do you know all this? And he's like, trust me. He's like, what does he do to the chicken if he's hypnotizing you? What does he do? He's like, they put stuff in it to make it addictive, so you keep craving it every night. And he's just like, okay, Dad, great. And then in the Pentaverate, there's a part where he's like walking through the hallways, Ken Scarborough, and there's like a portrait of every member of the Pentaverate, and then like he's like happens to stop next to a portrait of Colonel Sanders in like the Pentaverate like robes, and it's just like the plaque on the bottom just says like the Colonel like Pentaverate leader like 1972 or something like that, or
Yeah.
whatever year of the, and like it's to like, and it's like through whatever years like past surpassing like the year of So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Hmm.
So like that's like they I love that they went full circle with it. But he threw that one liner in there, and I guess like all these years later he probably like had it it was I feel like it was probably an idea that he kept coming back to over the years,
Yeah.
and he just never did anything with it.
Yeah, it was like something maybe he had on the back burner. It's like, oh, maybe one day when I'm not like busy with other projects, I can look into this, or like if I have my own production company or something, you know?
Yeah. And for like, well, the other thing is like for years, like Mike Myers like did barely anything after the
Yeah.
Love Guru, and like a
Well, I
lot of
think I
people
think
might
he made
think,
so much money from Shrek, and he was just like, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna enjoy my life and not work, you know?
well, pretty much he pretty much did that in a way. Like he like settled down and he had children. I
Yeah.
think he has like three children, and he just was like, you know, I don't I don't want to do like after all these years of like doing all these like hit movies and stuff and making a boatload of money, which I'm sure he was smart with, and but also like doesn't, like I'm like A, I'm sure he was smart with that money, and two, and like B, he probably made so much, like you said, off the back of Shrek and all these movies under
Yeah.
like older contracts where he's like gets residuals from them that like why would he have to like even like he got to a place where he could just pick and choose what he wanted to do and be in.
Right.
So for a while, like he only made like very small appearances in like movies, or like if he worked on a project like the Shep Gordon Supermensch documentary,
Yeah.
he did that on like at home in his apartment. He just edited everything in
Yeah.
his apartment. So like he just, he could be dad during the day, and then he would work on things at night, or like he would just like, be dad in the morning and then just say, okay, well, daddy's going to go downstairs and he has to work. But, if you really need it, but like, if you really need me, I'll be right here. So, like, so don't be afraid to knock. So, like, he could just have like the perfect work life. He could have like the perfect life basically and do it like, and just have a great time.
Right.
Um, and then this came along and he just was like, okay, well, I can do everything. And also, I think his kids were like approaching like 10 years old, so he could at least like, you know time became a little bit more free because they were like a little bit more into themselves and a little more independent. So he was like, okay, I guess we can do this project now. And like he hooked up with, forgive me, the producer of the show, and Tim Kirby. That's it, Kirkby, Tim Kirkby.
Mhm.
And he was just like, hey, you want to do stuff? And he was like, yes. So they ended up putting this together, and everybody enjoyed working on it. And like everybody that have, like, all of the other actors that have been like asked about the Pentaverate have all just said they had a lovely time, and they were like so jazzed to be asked to do this because
Yeah.
they, like, a lot of them had like wanted to work with Mike Myers forever. Like Ken Jeong specifically,
Yeah.
like, was just like, this is a dream come true. Because like when I was first studying like comedy acting, I studied Mike Myers stuff, so a lot of his humor like is in what I do. And like, it's like, this is a dream come true.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So
like, Mike Myers is really like a legend of like playing these comedic characters and like multiple. I
yes,
think only Eddie Murphy could like
yes, I was
and
gonna
that, like
say,
play like multiple characters as well as Mike Myers does in a movie.
yeah.
And I get
I was gonna say nobody does it better than Eddie Murphy, but Mike Myers comes pretty close.
yeah. I mean, I guess it's appropriate that they both start in Shrek because
Yes, and
um
also we're like on SNL.
yes, yeah,
Mike Myers had more success on SNL than Eddie Murphy, but Eddie Murphy also was not on SNL very long,
right,
because he just took off like a rocket.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it's definitely, he's got that skill, and you see it in other projects too, like, obviously, uh, Austin Powers, he plays multiple people. He plays
Yes,
Dr. Evil and Austin Powers and Fat Bastard and
and Gold
Goldmember.
member.
Yeah, so he's really good at doing it, and it's like one of those things where like, you could recognize it as that it's Mike Myers playing, a different character, but it's different enough where it doesn't like seem jarring. Like, oh, okay, I can
Hmm.
immediately see, oh, that's the same guy. Like it's like, okay,
Yeah,
yeah, I can see that it's Mike Myers playing a character, but like, it's different enough where it's like it works.
yeah. They all have the same humor for obvious
Yes.
reasons, but like, but they have like they all have their own like weird quirks about them
Well, and the
that are
perfect
like
thing is
unique
like
to them.
the fact that he plays Ken Scarborough, who's like kind of this mild mannered journalist, Anthony Lansdowne, which is like he's like this crazy conspiracy theorist, um, and then like Rex Smith, who's basically a parody of Alex Jones,
Yep.
um, and like they'll have like a scene basically like all together because Anthony Lansdowne is like a huge like fan of Rex Smith, and he's always like listening to Rex Smith's like radio show and stuff. And then it'll cut to like Anthony Lansdowne and Ken Scarborough like driving in the van together and having a conversation. And like it's almost like he's like, it's two different actors talking to each other, even though they're both
Yeah.
Mike Myers. Um, and I gotta say, like the editing is like great because like you would never be able to tell that obviously they had to film it twice with two separate takes because and it's Mike Myers in two separate costumes.
Sure. I mean,
But
like, even when like the Pentabert is just sitting, like, is just like
yeah,
in a full scene together, they had to film that's like at least at least three times, four times, five times, depending on how many members there are.
right,
So it's like
yeah, exactly, and
crazy.
it works. It like it flows seamlessly. It's everybody is a separate actor.
Yes.
Um, and
The
I
only
liked. I was gonna say that I like that there's Mike Myers kind of throws in these little references to his past projects in it.
Yeah.
Like uh obviously, you had mentioned the Shrek thing. And Mike Myers actually plays the Shrek character in this too,
Yeah.
obviously. Um, but he also, I think that him playing Shep Gordon is not only a reference to the documentary that he did of Shep Gordon, but also if you go back even farther to Wayne's World, Shep Gordon was Alice Cooper's manager, and
Yes.
obviously Alice Cooper featured very prominently in
Well,
Wayne's World.
well, I believe Shep Gordon also is or was for a long period of time a Mike Myers manager.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
I have to watch the Supermensch documentary, but I think that's like because he became more than just like a manager.
Right.
They became very close, and he became very good friends with a lot of his clients.
Yeah.
Just because Shep
Oh, yeah.
Gordon
He
is
was.
like a
He
great guy.
he actually, yeah, he did manage. He also managed Michael Douglas, Sylvester Stallone, and Tom Arnold.
Oh wow.
So there you go.
Yeah, but Shep Gordon, like from that documentary, which is very good, by the way. I'd like to watch it again, but he just seemed like the coolest, nicest. He just seems like the coolest, nicest guy you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
Like you see him and you like, wow, I really want to hang out with this guy. And he lives on a tiny island by himself. Like who who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
But yeah, Mike Myers also plays Jason Eccleston for a bit, who's like the reason why they end up bringing in Keegan Michael Key into the Pentaverate, because you can't bring in a new member of the Pentaverate unless an old member dies,
Yeah.
because it has to stay as 5 members.
Yeah.
Um, and they they get him in there, and then like Jason Eccleston is also like very different. I'm not sure who he's supposed to be like based off of.
Hmm.
Um, but he's like just some like stoner tech guy who creates the supercomputer that they use called Mentor, which is basically Pete Davidson's eyeball.
Yeah.
Um,
It's fucking
but
it's like very lewd too. Like,
yeah, because they said like when they designed it, like when they launched it, like there was like a faulty mechanism in the language, and like it defaulted to like a New England accent, so like
yeah.
it's just like super like salty.
Yeah.
um and but yeah, the other guys, he's Bruce Baldwin, which is basically supposed to be Rupert Murdoch,
Hmm.
who, spoiler alert, is the big bad. Um and also Mishu Ivanov, which is supposed to, I guess, be like he's like an allusion to Rasputin,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. He's a Russian oligarch, but he
Yeah,
looks like Rasputin. He's got like the long hair and the beard,
yeah,
and wears like robes.
yeah. And one of the other gags that I just think is really funny is just like how they have like Rob Lowe and Maria Menounos just
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
like just
I
like
mean, of
as
course, Rob Lowe would be there because if it's a Mike Myers movie, if it's anything that involved like that cast of SNL, Rob Lowe is there.
yeah, but also like every time they use Rob Lowe for like a Pentaverate like intro video or training video or anything like that, like they use them both for like the training videos, and like every time Rob Lowe's there, he has to like they have to wipe his memory for everything.
Yeah.
So like he does all of these secrets, and then they like wipe his memory, and he's
Yeah.
always just like dazed afterwards. Um and like and then like with Maria Menounos, she's always, just very nice and friendly, and the Maria Menounos that we've all come to know and love. And then but like later on, when there's like an emergency breach and they have to shut down the Pentaveret and all that stuff, or there's like chaos in the Pentaveret, she's like trying to run away, and she's just like, and like it then like the audience then realizes that like she's like stuck in the TV basically. And then we
Sure.
also have Jeremy Irons, who I
Yeah, I was
think you
gonna
were
say,
just about to say, which
yeah,
I guess you
Jeremy
could take it
Irons
away.
is the narrator, and I like how in the second episode of the first episode he like basically narrates the whole backstory of the Pentaverate, and then the second episode he's like, "You better not hit that fucking skip button. You're gonna hear my whole thing," and then he goes into like the whole spiel from like the intro from the first episode. but it's
Yeah.
like it's just hilarious, like all the fourth wall breaking shit that they put
Well,
into it also.
as you get further into the episodes, each episode, Jeremy Irons gets more and more pissed off at the audience.
Yeah.
So he's just like, eventually he's like, well, the Pentaverate. He just goes, you know what? Fuck it, fuck it. So like, there's like you said, the fourth wall breaking is like just is hilarious in this.
Yeah,
Like,
because that's there's multiple cutaways to like the CEO of Netflix saying, "Oh, well, that we this was too offensive, or we have to change the scene or whatever." And it's like it's just and it actually like has like the Netflix logo pop up in the middle of like and it like flashes like the boom and then goes to like Netflix headquarters where we're like
yeah,
it's obviously not the real CEO of Netflix, but it's just hilarious the way they do it and break the fourth wall.
yeah,
It's like I said, very Mike Myers. You look back at his previous movies, like Wayne's World, where he's constantly talking to the audience and breaking the fourth wall. And like when they like open up a door and there's people training, like he's like, oh, I just always wanted to open up a door and see people training. Like just like
yeah.
stupid shit like that. And it's like it's just funny. It's just the way it always like seamlessly goes in. It's just funny.
Yeah, like nothing like Mike Myers is like his whole comedy style, and I bet you he storyboards the crap out of these things so that like he like gets all the jokes to land, or at least they at least make sense. Like
Yeah.
there's never just like a joke on top of a joke and then you're just like, what was the purpose of that? Like he has like this weird world building type of comedy
Yeah,
where
it's
like
like the jokes have to be like set up like over like multiple scenes kind of. It's never like just like, like boom, there's a joke, boom, there's a joke. It's like it's so subtly like put in there that you don't even realize it's a joke until like like the punchline hits and then like, "Oh my god, that's like hilarious." You know?
yeah. Oh, and also the last guy in the Pentaverate is that like Mike Myers plays is Lord Lordington, who I guess is supposed to be like, I guess he's supposed to be like Winston Churchill in a way. I'm not really sure who he's supposed to be,
Yeah.
but yeah, he does his thing too. But yeah, so basically the Pentaverate, nice people, but they also like are a secret society and that stuff. And it is funny, but also like I think the other interesting thing is that like it lends like yes, it's aware of what it is, and yes, of course, it's like the intention is to be silly, and I do think that this was the perfect thing that like the world needed in 2022, just
Yeah.
because we were still like I don't even know. Some people would say we were starting to get out of the pandemic. I would say we were starting to like see a light at the end of the tunnel because the vaccinations were starting to come around um and just like a lot of people were starting to get like somewhat hopeful.
Well, and it was also
Um
at that point where like the sickness wasn't as bad as it had been previously,
yeah,
so
that too.
it was starting to become more of an endemic thing and, just like almost like the flu at that point.
Yeah, and just after all of these like after the last couple of years of just people getting like rocked with all of this like craziness and like almost dystopian times for some, like they just kind of needed something like silly to take their mind off of. And while a
Yeah.
lot of while a lot of critics didn't like it at the time, I feel like this was the perfect thing needed.
Yeah, I feel like this could really get like a cult following because it's
I
like
think so.
and the humor is topical obviously because it's like, they make a lot of like jokes referencing more modern stuff, but I don't think it's like to the point where like, okay, well, this is obviously made in the 2020s. Like I feel like it could be kind of like timeless in a way. Because the topical jokes aren't like so over the top where it's like, oh yeah, this is happening exactly in this year, and this is why you could tell because of these jokes. It's like, like they're kind of subtle enough that it works and it kind of establishes like, okay, this is happening in the present time, but like
Yeah. Like
at the same
it doesn't quite date itself.
right, yeah. Uh, and like I said, it's that classic Mike Myers comedy that we've all like kind of like grown grown up with and come to know and love over the years, from like going all the way back to Wayne's World up to the Austin Powers movies. And it just like it works. His comedy works. It's a timeless kind of form of comedy, I think. you
Yeah, and
know
it's like kind of wholesome in its own way.
yeah, I mean, yeah, there's like lewd jokes and crude jokes that like this isn't a show for kids, basically.
No, no, it isn't.
But it's not like over the top, like ridiculous toilet humor all the time. It's very much like that Austin Powers level of like, okay, this is crude, but like there's kind of some thought behind it. It's not just like, oh, look at here's a penis, like there's an innuendo, but it's not like out in your face as much.
Yeah,
And like we said, the jokes, they just like they set them up so well, and it's like it's so subtle the way they're set up that like you don't even realize that this is part of the joke until like until they hit the punchline. Then you're like, oh my god, that's like hilarious, and then you can like kind of go back and say like, oh, like I didn't even realize they were setting this up as a joke.
yeah. Like I think one of the best set up ones um, is when he's like they're like in like Bulgaria or wherever they have to be for like the purpose that they're going is to like um they have to find out. I forget what exactly they have to do, but they have to go through this they have to go through the suits through this psychic and like go through the secret entrance to like find this like some to find like I forget who the person is exactly. They're like the Meister of the Brovnik. They have to go to or the Seister really. He has to get the spare key because the Pentaverate have like a spare voting key just in case something goes wrong, where a sixth person can go in and like fix things if they start to get out of hand
Hmm.
and like rectify the vote. Or at least even out the vote if it's like going in like a wrong if it's like not going in a good direction. Um and he goes and like he goes in to like get the thing and the Meister of Dubrovnik has been murdered. So like he goes through like the thing to the Seister and the Seister is like well first of all he like tells the Seister like I'm so sorry your brother's been murdered and they're like what? They're like like do our parents know? And like do our parents know? Do these people know? But like every like relative has like their like name ends in Eister.
Yeah.
So it's like, do my Mither and Feither know? Like and like he's in like the Hall of Mirrors, and they're like, and they're she's and like the Seister is like, I have a test for you, and he's like, okay, gives him a gun, makes him drink this angry potion in like this Hall of Mirrors, and he's like, oh no, and they're like, shoot me. They're like, you're a coward, you can't shoot me or whatever. And like the first shot, like he like happens to like dodge all of the mirrors and he shoots the Seister in the thigh and and the Seister is like, what the fuck did you shoot me for? And he's like, you told me to shoot you. He's like, I didn't think you were gonna shoot me. He's like, did I fail? He's like, did I fail the test? And he's like, and the Seister's just like, who gives a shit about the test? You fucking shot me. and and then like and so like he gives him the like so like the Seister tells him where to go or gives him the like the parchment clavum or the spare key. And like then you see the Seister like pick out like pull out their smartphone and they like call the ambulance and they're like they're like hello. He's like yeah he's like yeah if it's the Seister of Dubrovnik and they're like and you just hear him yeah it happened again. Like I don't know. For some reason, that one really got me. Most of these people are like that probably turned off the last viewer. Just like, wow, these people are stupid, and they probably went back to their lives or and miserable jobs. I don't know, um, but I don't know. I really enjoy the setup of this show, but also like the point that I wanted to make. Well, actually, this is the other point that I wanted to make is that of course it pokes fun at secret societies and it pokes fun at conspiracy theorists, but it also like it doesn't insult the conspiracy theorist person.
No, no, it
Like
doesn't.
most shows will like go out of their way to make the conspiracy theorist look like a jackass or like not know what they're talking about or just look absolutely crazy. But the the Pentaveret, like, it kind of takes the angle of what if they're right?
Yeah.
Like, what if they actually like are telling the truth? I'm not saying but that like I'm not taking a side here. I'm just saying that like I appreciate that it does the opposite of what a lot of show movies do. And it kind of just like lends like it doesn't give credit to, but it like it doesn't insult her like it doesn't insult her intelligence and it makes and like there's almost like an empathy toward that's the thing. There's almost like an empathy toward the conspiracy theorists where it's like, hey, like you're a person too.
Hmm.
And we see that with like Anthony Lansdowne's redemption and like how he finds the Meadows and he's like can't believe that he actually like that it really does exist because he's like I knew it. He's like because he's just like so happy that he like knew that it was true and like he was like oh my god
Yeah.
like I like one it's true but two I can't believe I'm here and I can see it with my own two eyes. Um and also he saves the day like in like a self-sacrifice kind of.
Yeah.
um I mean, they set up a second season, but I won't get into those details. I don't even think that a second season will happen
I don't
because,
think
well,
so either because it
one
was
outside of the critical panning, like two, like I don't think a lot of people watch the show. Like, obviously, we can't. I don't think we can get the viewing data of this,
yeah.
but I don't think a lot of people have watched it at the time. But I could, like you said, see this becoming a cult classic. Because if
Yeah.
I ever ask anyone about this show, it's either I loved this or I never heard of this.
Yeah, and when you had told me about it when we were deciding what episodes to do, I had never heard of it before. And so, it was cool. And like I didn't know what to expect going into it. Like I'm like I obviously I know Mike Myers and stuff, but uh I wasn't sure like what it was going to be. And like I was actually like pleasantly surprised. I'm like, "Oh, this is like classic Mike Myers. Like this is great." Like
Yeah,
and I was and I haven't nobody he hasn't done any really major projects in years now. And he's like he's done these little like appearances and cameos and like minor roles. He hasn't done like a big full-on project where he wrote it and also starred in it in a long time. So I was like, wow, this is like great. This is like, classic Mike Myers here,
yeah,
So I'm really hoping that it does catch on as a cult, gets a cult following. Although, Shrek 5 has now been announced, so I doubt that Mike Myers is going to do anything other than that for a while.
yeah, and it makes sense. He also probably
Yeah,
doesn't really. Also could probably record most of like the Shrek dialogue at his house too. So
I'm
like,
sure. Yeah.
I'm sure he's like I think like his it seems like his goal is really just like to like work as little as he can, make as much money as he can, and also like never leave his house.
Which is everybody's goal.
Yeah,
It's my goal.
so this Canadian fellow is this Canadian mensch is living the American dream as it's intended.
Yeah.
So good for him. And
Yep.
he also seems very nice.
Well, he's Canadian, so that's like a default setting for them.
I think so. We also did have the Liechtenstein guard who like we didn't really talk about or Patty who like
Yeah.
Patty is trying to drive like diversity and like spreading in like she's trying to get like better and different and more nuanced ideas into the Pentaverate so that they can tackle more problems and be a little bit more in touch. But like she also kind of goes along with it in a little bit because she's kind of like, well, I'll do my best and we'll see what like and I'll just keep pitching ideas and we'll see if they like we'll see if they're able to like bring them in. And the Liechtenstein guard, like they're kind of incompetent, but also like they're like a lovable incompetence. Like you kind
Yeah,
of
they're
like
and they're supposed to be like a
appreciate the guard.
they're supposed to be kind of like a parody of like the Swiss Guard at the Vatican, basically.
Yes. Yeah, but it is the whole thing is just like really fun, the Pentaverate.
Yeah,
I
it's a fun
you
show.
know,
It's got its moments. It's funny, you know.
yeah. And we also like we also the other fun thing is like at the beginning of like each episode, it'll show a quote from like someone who was either a Pentaverate member or a or like who like was once a candidate for the Pentaverate.
Yeah,
And then they like they kind of like throw in like a they kind of they kind of do like some foreshadowing with one of them for like Billie Eilish, and they're able to use like her and they use like one of her songs as like at the end of that episode when they reveal Bruce Baldwin as the bad guy.
yeah,
But like she like her thing like she is like a future member of like the Septaveret, which is what happens, which is like what they like reveal like towards the end of the season, where like eventually they're like the Pentaverate dissolves and for like failing to like do their duty and like vet everybody good, because Bruce Baldwin turned out to be a bad egg. He was good at first, but he was like got corrupted by like how people just gave their privacy away for free on the internet, and how like the internet became like this like toxic place of meme stuff and misinformation and everything.
yeah,
And he was just like how could all this like we tried to stop it, but it just got worse. So he kind of just got jaded. And like and then like since the Pentaverate disbands, Patty is then able to just like pick up the pieces, and she forms a Septaveret, which is like six people, I
hmm
think. And then like and like they're more diverse and they can tackle more ideas, and like they're a lot more pure and like younger and stuff like that. So like it would be interesting for like the Septaveret season to happen as
yeah,
like a continuation down the road, which that's where they leave it out that they could do. But I don't know if they'll do, I don't know.
yeah,
I do like that the door is left open where like
yeah,
if this caught on, then like they might just do it. I mean, for God's sakes, we know now like through like the cursed images that are Velma and like other like shitty shows that have been like hate watched and have gotten like a lot of views, not because they were good shows, but because so many people needed to see how terrible they were, and like that it gave studio executives, of course, the wrong message. Not like, oh my god, this show sucks. They ignored the feedback and they were like, well, look at how many people are watching this thing. Let's greenlight it again. So
yeah,
like if enough people, if like the Pentaverate catches on and like enough people check it out eventually, that's probably all that really needs to happen to get another season of this.
yeah, yeah. That would be, ideal. But and it's funny because like those shows that people hate watch, they end up getting like somehow getting decent reviews on like Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic. When this was like a big conspiracy a few years ago in the video game world, like video game journalists that took payments just to give like certain games good reviews.
Yeah, IGN got like it
Yeah.
hit a lot on that because
Yes.
like it was well IGN, it was kind of obvious of what was happening, because
Yes.
every other review site would be giving this game like much lower ratings than IGN. Like let's just say just
Call of Duty is a perfect example because the
yes.
Call of Duties were coming out and it was literally the same game over and over again. And like other review sites would bring that up and say, like, there's nothing different here. It's not that great, So they would give it an average review and then it would get like a 9 or a 10 on IGN. And it's like, all right, well, okay. So
Well,
clearly they're getting paid off.
it wouldn't just get like a 9 or a 10 on IGN. It also would like all of the banner ads would be like clear as day for the new Call of Duty that they just reviewed
Yeah.
and gave a 9 or 10. So it's like, okay, well, I see what's going on here. We're like on the other sites, you would not be seeing a Call of Duty banner ad or a full spread like that.
Yeah.
where it's like pretty obvious of what's happening here. So like with IGN, I'm I'm a little bit more prone to trust their like reviews of literally anything else, but not a
Right.
video game.
Yeah.
And they've probably gotten better over the years, but like that just left such a bad taste in my mouth that I'm just like I can't trust a video game review from them.
Well, and to go back to my original point, it's not, this happened to IGN several years ago, but I think to some extent it's happening today in various different sites,
Oh yeah, yeah.
wherever like aggregators like Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic are getting their reviews from, because there's certain things that you look at it and okay, there's certain amount of review bombing that goes on for shows that piss people off, but also there's some truth behind that. Like the Acolyte is a perfect example where it's getting like glowing critic reviews but like terrible audience reviews. And like, okay, yeah, some of those are like review bombers that just like hate it just to hate it. But if you actually read some of the reviews, there actually is legitimate criticism of the show. The fact that the budget was so high, but the effects and the writing is awful on it,
Yeah.
and it's like, so it's Disney like paying some reviewers to give them like good reviews, so that way the aggregate sites like Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes, it looks like they have a good score. Who knows? Uh,
I
and I
mean,
think
it's entirely possible. Like, I don't know how many people know. I don't know if I've mentioned this before on the show. I may have. We're at least 130 episodes in. I've probably said it once or twice, but like, um, for like, for like, about like, I don't know, about like 8 to 10 years or something like that. I was a journalist, and like one of the things that I would see was just like with sponsored content or sponsored posts, like we would be told like, "Oh, this is a this is a sponsored ad."
right,
So like, you need to really talk it up and make it look good. Or like I don't know, like I was writing like a local news thing where it was just like it was just like apartments for sale and things like that. So I just scour Zillow and things like that, and I would just like, you know, talk about like the amenities, talk about a little bit about the price, talk a little bit about something else,
right,
and then like we'd get to the sponsored one, and like I would be like, and they would be like, okay, well for the sponsored one, don't talk about how expensive it is because it was one of it was like a really like overpriced listing, um, and like they were like talk about how great the amenities are. Where like there weren't really many amenities. It was like a like they just had like a courtyard but no benches or something like that. And so I was like, but the courtyard doesn't have benches. Well, just make the courtyard sound great. And I would be like, but this like you want me to like mislead people into like checking this place out when they're gonna show up and the first thing they're gonna do is go to the courtyard and just say, where are the benches? Like
right.
it's and then like they would get annoyed where I would just be like, why can't I like I'd give in a draft and I would just write something up and they would be like, you can't talk about the price being high. We know it's high. And I'm like, so like so what do you want me to do here? Like like I'm not gonna lie about their place. And they're like, well, just embellish embellish the positives. And I'm like, there's not really that many. Like this is like I'm like, this isn't a good deal for anybody.
Yeah,
And they're like, well, these sponsored posts can like help pay our salaries and keep the lights on. So like, you better make it look good. And I would be like, okay, fine, but I'm just freelancing, so it doesn't really pay much. It doesn't pay me that much.
right.
Like I'm like you. Honestly, if you bought me like, you could just buy me like, you could just give me like a bunch of gift cards to a coffee shop and like that probably be more than you're paying me for this. But
Yeah,
yeah, sponsored content, you run into a lot of like things like that. So it's entirely possible that Disney is like paying like these reviewers to like,
right.
and I'm using that term loosely, to just like
Yeah,
overhype and like lie about how good something is.
yeah,
Yeah, like I was talking this weekend to like my brother-in-law and like a couple of other people about The Acolyte, because I was like, I had just started watching X-Men 97, which to be fair. I'm 3 episodes in, but I would say like the first 2 episodes, it kind of feels like a little ridiculous with some things,
Right.
and you're just like, well, where are they going with this? But then by episode 3, like it shows you where you're going, it introduces the big bad, and you're just like, and then you realize which storyline they're doing from the comics, and you're like, oh, this is great.
Right.
We're like, and like we were talking about like the Disney Plus stuff, and then like the Acolyte came up, and they were like, "Did you check out the Acolyte?" And I was like, "No, I didn't." Like, is it good? And they were like, "I wanted to like it, but it's just so bad."
Yeah. And that's actually, everyone wants to like say, oh well, it's just like, bigots and chuds that are like giving it bad reviews, and it's really not. But like I've actually heard legitimate reviews like from people that aren't like just being assholes, that are like saying it's just not good. It's like the writing is just very poor, and it's like, and it also like, from the things that I've seen that are in it, like it breaks like its own lore multiple times, and breaks canon multiple times, where it's like, okay, Disney wanted to throw out the extended universe and write their own canon, all well and good, but they can't even keep their own canon, like like they can't even keep to their own continuity. They're like ruining their own continuity. So it's
Yeah.
like, well, that's just stupid. And someone brought up a good point. The showrunner on the Acolyte, and I don't want to get too much into this because it's we're talking about a good show, so but like the showrunner on the Acolyte was Harvey Weinstein's personal assistant for years,
Oh boy.
and she was setting up his appointments. She was doing, so you got to wonder, like, how the hell did she get this job? Does she have something on somebody? Because clearly she's like not that great, at what she does, but like she's in this huge position of power running a multi, like I think the production costs of the Acolyte was like $1 billion or something. Like it was
Jesus.
obscenely high. uh and like, so it's like you got to wonder, like, what does she have on some executive at Disney, like, like that she
Yeah.
got the job.
Yeah, I mean, like if you just look at the Acolyte, the average tomato meter of like the crit, which is like the critics for those who don't know,
Yeah.
and then there's the critic one and the audience score, which first of all is disingenuous by itself because it doesn't show you the true average. You have to like do the true average in the middle. The
Right.
average tomato meter of like all the quote unquote pro reviewers is 80%. The average audience score is 17%.
Right.
So like that should tell you everything.
And yeah, yeah, okay, there is
And
like review
and
a number of review bombings going on. So like,
but like even if we weed it out, like let's just say the review bombers were like even 50%
right.
of like the bad ones. So like let's just cut them out and let's just add 50 points to this. You're still at 67, which is
Not
still
great.
not it's not I mean it's less bad, but it's not good either.
Yeah.
It's like 67 makes it seem like it's like if
It's
you
a
have
D average.
yeah, it's like if you have nothing better to do and you like really need to kill some time, then like you could put this on in the background, but
Right.
don't bother like if you're like this like basically 67 is just like if you're doing your chores and you like have to clean the house or something like that, then like you could put this on in the background, but like don't bother like sitting down and like paying attention to this.
Yeah.
Like, so like that's being that generous and cutting out 50%. You're still at the 67.
Yeah.
Where like, like the average, what would be the average of this? 80, 17. It's 97 divided by 2. That's like I'm American, so my math is gonna be freaking terrible. That's like uh it's like 52 and a half. So if we combine those two, it's like a 52 and a half. So still not good.
No.
Um, so, you know, skip it.
Yeah.
Basically, Pentaverate, probably around the same average, but like you have the tomato meter, which is 27%, and then
Right.
you have the audience score, which is 61%. Now, you should probably trust the audience score better in case you haven't noticed what we're trying to tell you. But that averages out to also not good. That averages out to like probably like in the 40s somewhere at best. But
Right.
which, by that means, don't watch this at all. But this is also, like we've said, this is a show to turn your brain off. If you like Mike Myers' humor, you're gonna like the Pentaverate.
Well,
If
he
you
also, you got to think too that the audience score here, it's not like they're not just hate review bombing. It's probably more
Yeah,
genuine than what you would see on like something like The Acolyte or any other Disney show, because people
correct.
just like rightfully hate on Disney because it's like, let's face it, it's an evil corporation.
Yeah. I mean,
So
it's pretty much a giant law firm that like also makes
yes,
entertainment.
yeah. So I would say the average audience score is way more accurate on here than it would be anywhere else. And 61%
Yeah.
is not terrible. Um it's
Yeah. Again, like we said, you could put this on in the background and you don't have to pay attention.
and if you look at the average tomato meter from top critics, it's up to 56%. So yeah, all
There's a
critics,
top critic thing?
yeah, you could select it to top critics, so it's only going to be like the people that actually matter, not just like some random douchebag on the internet that fucking purposely review bombs like or says something's
Oh, yeah,
bad
yeah,
just
yeah.
to be a fucking contrarian.
Yeah.
Uh, someone that has a personal vendetta against Mike Myers, like.
Yeah.
So anyway, the point being is that the reviews for the Pentaverate aren't really, and I mean, again, it's not fucking super high quality like this is like the Godfather of comedies or anything like that, but it's
Yeah.
funny
Oh,
and it's
when you do the when you do the top critics of the Acolyte, it goes down to 72% actually.
oh, so there you
So
go.
that there you go. You're
Again, a
getting
more
more.
accurate picture.
Yeah.
You got to wonder how many friggin' like of these like littler, smaller reviewers are taking a paycheck from Disney just because it's that sweet, sweet Disney money. It's like, oh yeah, I'll take an extra $2,000 to give them a good review. Like just so
Yeah.
they can have a better tomato reader.
Yeah.
Anyway, the
And
Pentaveret is worth watching. It's funny. It's a fun thing, and it's not like it doesn't have to like go over the top with like topical humor like it is, but it isn't, and the jokes are really well set up. It's very well written. And it's just fun. It's a fun little show, and it's definitely worth checking out. That's all I have to say.
yeah, I mean, all that pretty much sums up what I got to say too. Worth it if you want to turn your brain off and just like zonk out for about a half hour. It's a low stakes thing. You don't really or if you want to just like have something on in the background, this works too. But
And it's only 6 episodes, so it's not like you're watching like hours and hours of content.
yeah, it's not a big time investment.
You,
So
you
like,
basically can watch it in a weekend, and
yeah, I mean, you can watch it in an afternoon if you got a lot of chores to do,
yeah,
or if you just like really have like a really stressful week and you just need to veg out one day and like do nothing.
yep,
This is like perfect for stuff like that.
yep,
But it's Mike Myers doing Mike Myers stuff. Like the people who like negatively reviewed this and said like, "Oh, this is just terrible." Like I'm not really sure what exactly you were expecting. This
right.
like just looking at it, it's not going to be like Citizen Kane.
Right,
So
exactly. It's
like
Mike Myers. He's like, it's just he writes goofy, kind of like silly, a little bit stupid, but it's like, but like well written. It's not like just stupid for the sake of stupid. It's like everything like makes sense and comes together really well, and it's like it's funny. And it's, I don't want to say it's like wholesome, but it's like it's not just like
it has
pure
like
like
it
sex
has a
jokes or whatever.
it has a wholesome charm to it.
Yes, yeah, it's got a definitely got a charm.
Yeah. So like we said before, it's if you like Mike Myers humors, if you like the Austin Powers movies, if you like Wayne's World, if you like anything of that nature, like you're going to enjoy the Pentaverate. And if that stuff's not for you, then you're not going to then you just won't and like you could go ahead and skip it. But I like that stuff. You could say what you want. I think it's fun. I really enjoyed the Pentaverate. I liked it better the second time. And I hope that we get a Septaveret, and I hope that this like becomes a big cult classic, and like people end up enjoying it and appreciating it.
Yep.
Um, but that's all I got to say about that. Um, for the one person who stuck around this entire time, and listened to the show, thank you so much. We really
Yes.
appreciate you. Um, anyway, do all the things that you could do on the channels, get our subscriptions up so that we can get to 100 and roast that person.
Like, comment, and
And
just subscribe.
yeah, do all those stupid things. Give us money. I don't care what you got to do, or just don't do anything. I really don't care. Um, thanks
Pay
for
us
listening.
$10,000, so we were forced to review Lulu.
Yeah, and just if you're not, if you don't want to, if you definitely don't want to support us at all, just don't ever give us $10,000. Don't do that, because
Yeah.
then for God's, then we'll be forced to watch to listen to Lulu, and you don't. None of us want to do that. None of
Nobody
us.
wants that.
No, no. Wh- Why would
Not even
anyone want? You should just don't give us $10,000, or
not,
really try your best not to.
not even Lou Reed wanted that, and he wrote the fucking album.
Yeah, and he's dead.
Yeah.
He died being angry about this
Yep.
album. He also died knowing that two jackoffs would start a podcast and try to profit off of this. Probably would make, and they'd probably make more money than anyone who had anything to do with that album did off of that
Probably.
album. But that's a story for possibly another day if people with deep pockets and even deeper levels of insanity would like to distribute and make a reality. But until then, this has been Why Does This Exist? I have been Chris.
And I've been Rob.
And remember, question everything.
Good night, everybody.
Also, the Pentaverate must never be exposed.
Pentaverate must never be exposed.